on Longevity 101 from a Medicine 3.0 perspective, which is basically using lifestyle intervention and the latest cutting edge technology, supplements, all of that to increase not just health span and both health span and lifespan. So do you want to live to be 100? How many of you in this room want to live to be 100? Okay, that's less than half. Do you know that we have... Without disease, absolutely, well said. The fact is though, we have doubled, more than doubled, our global average lifespan in the last decade. But our healthy years have not nearly increased as much, they've just not caught up. Which means health span, like you correctly said, is not the same as lifespan. Now, if I tell you, you could have the same cognition, same mobility, and maybe even the same aesthetic and look the same as you were when you were 40 or 50, then how many of you would want to live to be 100? Show of hands. Thank you. That increases the number by more than double. Okay, so what is it about aging then that we need to preserve for a healthy and long life? We need to make sure we preserve our muscle mass, we strengthen our immune system, especially to prevent diseases like cancer, which is probably the number 1 or number 2 cause of early death, and we need to improve our cognition to prevent dementias like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Now, there are 3 approaches to achieve this to slow down aging. One is environmental, biological, and third is therapeutic, and that's what I'm going to cover. What is biological? Environmental. How many of you in this room have heard of Buchner and the blue zone? Absolutely, great. Lovely. So what he tries to say is what I think of as a lazy man's way of increasing both health span and lifespan. What he's suggesting is don't do anything. Don't have to join your gym, don't have to exercise more, don't even make any definitive difference to your own diet. Change your environment, change your external circumstance. When you do that, then you will automatically then move more. Am I good? Am I audible? Yeah. You will move more and you will eat better. For instance, if dinner is to be served half a kilometer away, you might crib about it, but you will still walk because you need to eat. Similarly, if you change what's in your pantry, you're not going to, order in Zomato or Swiggy at 12 and 1 at night. You may do it, but you'll do it much less than you normally do. And that is, if you do these, you're making subconscious choices. And over a 5-year period, it has been shown that you can actually improve both health span and lifespan. So you decide whether you want to do it the lazy way, and if you want to do it the proactive way, then you need to look at the biologicals, which means you need to change your own daily habits so you take onus of your own health. See, 70% to 80% of our outcomes, of our health outcomes, are determined by epigenetics. We know this. Our genes only load the gun, but it is our lifestyle that pulls the trigger. So changing our lifestyle can also change our outcomes. Now, this is what we cover in the biological aspect. And let me cover it one by one. Nutrition. Food is not just calories. What you have in your fork or in your spoon is not just for your taste buds. It is gene expression. It can turn on and off your longevity genes. Also, people think of food more as calories and I've put on weight, I'm going to drop weight, where is my weight at? Don't think of food as that. Think of nutrition as metabolic health and what can it do to keep you metabolically healthy? Because that is what's going to give you health span, lifespan, because it's not going to give you chronic metabolic disease. Now, within nutrition, we have what we eat, the sequence in which we eat, and when we eat that are components that affect aging. So this is how your food should look like. It should be low glycemic, rich in plants, good quality protein, but not too much protein, and I'll talk about that. And you must include good quality fats. High glycemic foods we know are a driver of inflammation and will almost certainly cause chronic diseases which will shorten our health span and obviously then lifespan. So let's cover protein first. What is the role of protein in longevity? We need protein to build muscle. Muscle mass is the currency for longevity. That being said, in the first half of your life, you want your protein intake to be very high because you want your muscle mass to be more because you're in a state of reproduction. But in the second half of your life, when you're done with the phase of reproduction, unless you're somebody who is working out in the gym or a competitive athlete, then that's a different ballgame. But for most of us here who don't fall in that bracket, you want your protein to be elevated, but not too much, because you just need to retain your muscle mass so that you are not frail, you don't have falls, you don't break a bone, because we know that when you stop moving, which happens as we can get older, you inevitably decline and at an accelerating rate. We also need to prevent sarcopenia. We lose approximately 3 to 5% of our muscle mass per decade above the age of 30. This number has been changed. It was initially 40. So that's how fast we deteriorate. Now, this deserves a mention. How many in the room know about mTOR and what it does? Good. Okay, so for the same reason, mTOR we know is a protein signaling molecule, which is a very important which has a very important role in longevity. We need mTOR to be very high for the same reasons that I said the first half of your life. In the second half of your life, you want your mTOR not to be consistently high. So you want it to be high enough to retain muscle mass, but you don't want your mTOR to be consistently high, because you want to be in a state of repair. Now, this is what protein does. Now, we need, like I said, protein for stimulation of mTOR. Activation of mTOR is essential for anabolic signaling. That's how you will not only retain but also increase or retain muscle mass. But I am a proponent of protein restriction. After you do a good amount, you give yourself a bolus of protein, then you restrict protein, because protein restriction targets only mTOR-C1. mTOR-C1 is the pathway for aging. mTOR-C2 is actually protective. So you want to make sure that your mTOR-C2 is working optimally, and that signaling pathway one of the key ways to get that signaling pathway activated is protein restriction. So then how much protein should one consume? Well, obviously it's totally personalized. It depends on how much you work out. It depends on your age, like I've just said. It depends on your current medical status. If you're somebody who's got, CKD, then you need to make sure your protein content is significantly lower. And it depends on your gut health, because it's not what you eat, it's what you assimilate. We know that all disease begins in the gut. So you make sure that your gut is in great state. What is the best time to consume protein? Now, there are studies that show us that a single bolus of 20 grams of protein after resistance training for up to 5 hours, it doesn't necessarily have to be half an hour after your workout like most people think, can actually give you maximum anabolic stimulus. Studies also show that it is the distribution of protein through the day that is important. So if you're someone who's excessively intermittent fasting or doing fast like OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, and getting all your protein in that one meal, you may not necessarily get the anabolic stimulus. So you need to take it within 5 hours of your workout and distribute your protein if you're looking at longevity. This is a constant conundrum, veg versus non-veg protein. Okay, so let's talk about this. I don't believe, though I'm hardcore non-vegetarian, I don't believe there's anything wrong with being vegetarian, and you can actually get ample source of protein being vegetarian, but you need to combine it correctly. So, now when you're non-vegetarian, we know that the amino acid profile is complete, so that is great, and you're going to get great form of iron, which is your heme usable iron. Too much protein, especially from non-vegetarian sources, like I just said, can stimulate mTOR and significantly stimulate mTOR, which is why you need to have enough veg and non-veg protein so you don't keep that mTOR constantly stimulated. Vegetarians' protein, of course, is much easier to get organic source, and they have less saturated fat, though I don't think saturated fat is necessarily a bad thing, so that's good. And you can complete this amino acid profile by combining it correctly. So for instance, when you eat rice and dal, don't fear your rice, eat it, even if you're trying to drop the weight. Eat it by combining it this way, and it will be a fully biological, complete protein. Fats. Everyone seems to be afraid of this food group. You want to drop weight, cut off fats, low-fat biscuits, low-fat butter, I don't even know what that means, but everything has to be low-fat. Scared of cardiovascular disease, knock off fats. The fact is, Nothing balances your hormones as well as fats do. It's essential for immune health. It's also essential for satiety. Of all the 3 food groups, nothing keeps you satiated and full as much as fats do. And it also keeps you metabolically healthy, which means you're going to die much later. That's what you're looking at. These are your pro and anti-inflammatory fats, and I'm sure everyone here knows these, so I've just written them as a slide. But these are the fats you should consume. Just stay away from the seed oils, stay away from vegetable oils, trans fats, and rancid fats. Those will most certainly kill you and kill you quick. And these are the fats that you should consume. Carbohydrates. You know, there is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. We have essential proteins, yes. Essential fats, yes. Carbs? No such essential carbs. So, no, but you need carbs because how am I going to do this presentation? I won't have the energy to do it. Not correct. How's my kid going to study for an exam if they don't have a carbohydrate? Not correct. But depleting protein and fat will almost certainly cause all metabolic problems. You don't need carbs or grains to be healthy. Can you have them? Sure you can, but you don't need them. And if you are overweight, if you're diabetic, if you have fatty liver, then just knock off all simple carbs. Just do yourself a favor. Now, I can't do a presentation without saying this. Refined sugar is a poison, and the statement ends there. That full stop should be a capital if that was possible. So that's what you need to do. You need to eat phytochemical, color-rich, color-dense foods, and fiber because you want to feed that good bacteria. Done with carbs. Food sequencing is very important. We've all heard of this. You need to dress your carbs. You know, naked carbs are bad for you, so you dress them up. How do you dress them up? You dress them with fiber, which means you begin your meal with fiber, then you do your protein and carbs. Why do you do this? Because you don't want that sugar surge to happen, and eating this way will reduce 3 significant hormones. Will reduce your blood sugar, your insulin, and your leptin. If you keep all these 3 hormones abysmally low, you're almost guaranteed to live healthy, not get any chronic metabolic diseases, and you know how we say the graph is when at 40 and 50 and then there is a slow decline? That almost will not happen. So that's something you need to keep in mind. Blood sugar, insulin, leptin. And when we eat. Now, like I said, fasting. It turns out it's not the period when you eat, but the period that you don't eat, which actually turns on or off your genes for longevity. Which explains why fasting has been observed across continents, across religions for decades and centuries. So choose a smaller eating window. Just during that window, make sure you're getting your ample protein and you're spacing the protein correctly. How does fasting help? It stimulates autophagy. It reduces insulin spikes, and I've just said the importance of that. Reduces inflammation, of course, and it changes both your gut microbiome, and it also helps with dementias. So there's no reason why I think anyone should do fasting. Just make sure fasting is done correctly, because we see lots of fasting that's done inappropriately, and that fasting is given a bad name when actually you're just doing it wrongly. So when you eat in all the ways that I've discussed with protein, fats, carbs, you will balance your hormone, reduce your inflammation, improve gut-brain chemistry, and lower these 3 hormones, which I keep repeating because I think that is absolutely the backbone of longevity. Decreasing these 3, lowering them, will slow down aging. End of story. As far as food is concerned, we move on to exercise. It's the unsung hero of longevity. Exercise can reduce cancer risk by 3-fold and increase all-cause mortality by 2-fold even in older adults. Those are staggering numbers. It also helps you preserve muscle mass, which is, like I said, a key driving force of independence. Now, people who have a hip fracture over the age of 60 increase their risk of dying within 1 year by 50%. So, all practitioners here who've had patients who have had a fracture. I know I lost my own grandmom to this year. She had a fracture of her hip in January and we lost her in April. I mean, just taking care of this by exercise alone will reduce your mortality. So what kind of exercise do we need? It turns out we need zone 2, VO max, stability, resistance, a combination of these four, and I'll tell you what this looks like. What is zone 2? Zone 2 is when you train at 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate, which means if I was speaking to you on the telephone right now, you'd be able to say, hey, you know what, Vishakha is actually exercising. I can tell she's exercising, but I can still have a conversation with you. I'm just not gasping for breath. An easy way to know what your maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. And then you need to work at 60 to 70% of that to be in zone 2. This also helps your body to burn fat for energy. VO2 max is your pinnacle of performance. So when you're doing that sprint or you're doing that HIIT workout, that is your VO2 max. It's also what we call zone 5. It increases your oxidative capacity, it stimulates mitochondrial growth, which we know is great for longevity. So this is the maximum amount of oxygen that your body can absorb during exercise. And resistance training, we all know this of course, which is essential. But within resistance training, focusing on squats, deadlifts, and grip strength seems to be the best exercises. Grip strength is actually a proxy marker for longevity because it tells you the strength more or less of the entire body. So it can also tell you that you're not going to have falls or you're not going to have fractures and die because of those. Then we have balance tests, which I can talk about later, and stability. Stability covers flexibility and mobility, and this includes exercises like yoga and Pilates. I'm a big proponent of yoga, which can be integrated throughout. So this is what you need to do through the week. You need to have 45 minutes of exercise in zone 2, recommended about 4 times a week, 30 minutes of VO2 max just once a week, resistance training about 20 to 30 minutes, 3 times a week, and stability should be integrated as part of this workout. This cumulatively turns out to be about an hour, 6 days a week.
Why not 7?
Oh, so I think it's very important for muscle recovery. Okay, so that's your exercise, and this is something that I think everyone needs to follow. Now, moving on to sleep. Sleep is a necessity, not a luxury. I remember in medical school, we used to compete who, has slept less, and oh my God, I burnt the candle at both the ends last night. Little did we know that it's slowly but surely going to kill us all. Not just short-term ill effects, not just I'm feeling groggy, I can't focus the next day, I'm irritable, but sleep deprivation has long-term consequences. It can increase insulin resistance, obesity, type 2 diabetes, cancer, everything that's going to kill us much earlier than we should be dying.
It is the next epidemic, sleep deprivation.
I agree with you, yeah. Now, so this is what we do then to prevent this epidemic from happening. We sleep at more or less the same time, according to the circadian rhythm. Temperature control around 16 to 20 degrees seems to be, the ideal temperature. Nowadays we have newer devices. We can use cooling mattresses. We can use the Aura Ring, which will tell us our fantastic, yeah. And also foot baths, which is one of my favorite because it's a non-pharmacological way, it's easy, it actually reduces your core body temperature, takes your temperature down from the midst of your body into your feet. So it tells your body it's time to sleep. And what do you not do? We're all so hooked on to blue light, either on the phone, television, LEDs, all of that. So block that so that your melatonin production is good. Decrease stimulants like alcohol and caffeine. For people who say, I sleep really well when I drink alcohol, alcohol sedates you. It does not put you to sleep. Sedation is not the same as sleep, it just knocks you out. So no, you're actually reducing the quality of your good quality sleep. And avoid sleeping pills. There are lots of great supplements that you can take instead of sleeping pills. And eat dinner within 3 hours of sleeping so you don't get GERD and don't get acid reflux and don't wake up. Mindset. Now I've spoken about all this, but do you know there are studies to show that optimists live 15% longer than pessimists. So if you just walk out from this room and decide, I don't want to be a pessimist anymore, you're increasing your lifespan by 15% just by seeing the life half, the glass half full instead of half empty. So, and there are studies been done on this because these people, optimists, have a sense of purpose and are motivated. They want to live a healthy and long life. Have you met your friends today? If not, I encourage you to make new friends and meet them. Why? Because social connection is actually, again, studies, the strongest predictor of life expectancy. I have a rule within my friend circle. My closest friends are the ones who are active and intellectual. So I can have meaningful conversations with them. I don't need to discuss the next trip or the newest trend or diamonds or bags. I would much rather walk with them, have meaningful conversations with them, and discuss life. So just choose your friends well. Stress mitigation. Acute stress is great and can be life-saving. Chronic stress, though, can cause low-grade inflammation, which can significantly reduce both our health span and lifespan. So what do? You're mindful. You wake up, you meditate. It could be 5 minutes. So, people who say, I don't have the time, I don't have the patience, I can't keep my eyes shut. Start with 2 minutes, start with 3 minutes. The Calm app, there are so many things now that you can actually use even for short-term meditation. And do deep breathing exercises. If you want to reduce your anxiety in the now, if you're stressed right now, and if you want to reduce it in the now, try vagal breathing. It's such an easy way to reduce your stress levels. You exhale longer than your inhalation. It doesn't matter what your counts are. Oh, but doctor, I can't hold my count so long. You're telling me 3 counts in, 6 counts out. It doesn't matter. Whatever your inhalation, let your exhalation be longer than that. You immediately activate your parasympathetic nervous system and you go into a state of calm. So stress mitigation is very important.